Hey everybody, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I'm your host G1 as always. Hope you're having a good week. Been a wild one out there in the old world. Yesterday, another shooter went on a rampage and fired into a Catholic school. Yet another instance of transgender mental illness manifesting in a violent outburst. 2 dead and something like 20 injured. Of course, the left immediately fell all over themselves to blame the firearms, those evil assault weapons. Even some Fox News commenters got in on the act. The so-called right-winger, and I used to like Trey Gowdy, but he certainly has shown his true colors. He comes out and declares that we should disarm young white males. Well, this shooter, first off, he wasn't white, he was Jewish, and he was in his 20s. So, Trey, exactly what age do we consider young? And since you brought it up, let's really look at the race of so-called mass shooters. Let's see who is really behind the vast majority of mass shootings. Here's a hint, Trey. It's not young white males. Okay? They get the... Every time one of these media attention-grabbing things happens, they say, "Oh, it's a young white male." Well, the last ones have all been transsexual people, so that's the factor there. But at any rate, go look that information up if you doubt me. First off, what constitutes a mass shooting? That's the important metric. More than one victim, more than 3 or 4. What's the number there? Because it makes a big shift in the numbers when you realize that the vast majority of multiple casualty attacks are drug related, and they're perpetrated by young black males involved in gang activity. So if we really want to stop mass shootings, we would outlaw young black males from owning firearms, if we want to be perfectly honest. But that's not what the goal is here. That's not what they really want to do. Anyway, no one really wants to talk about the real root cause of these attacks, which is the horrible mental health crisis that we have in this country. There are loads of broken young men in the country, and the solution that is rolled out to address that is handfuls of pills with little to no understanding of how the brain actually works and what those pills will do to these young men. There's no consideration given to the idea that modern society itself is at fault, and young men are being seriously ill-prepared and incompatible with that modern society, and that incompatibility is the root of their mental health sickness. No one wants to look at that, because that would mean we have to admit that our culture is out of alignment with the real and the natural world. And correcting cultural problems is always, well, it's always really hard. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is really hard. And sometimes, however, the culture is aware that it is out of alignment with the attempts of the modern ruling class to impose their will upon it, and it begins to resist and push back. And this week we saw a blistering example of that in Scotland. Now, I am of Scottish descent, and I am proud of that to the extent that a long-time immigrant to the United States can be. My family's been in the United States for a long time. I'm closer to my southern culture and heritage, and more in line, that's more in line with how I would define myself. But nonetheless, I am of Scottish blood, so I was happy to see the old fire begin to rise there, as it is in Ireland, which I also have roots to. And the internet became engrossed with this situation in Dundee, Scotland, where a young girl of about 12 or 13, I think she's 12, she's videoed by brandishing a hatchet and a large kitchen knife in the protection of her sister and another girl, their friend. Well, who were they protecting themselves from? Well, two immigrants who had first harassed them and then attacked one of the girls. The account is that the male immigrant approached the girls and began to use explicit language and make advancements on the older sister of this girl, who is not much older than her, underage, let's put it that way. And the girls all rebuked him and told him to leave them alone, and he continued to follow them. And it was at this point that the sister of the immigrant, so another female, comes into the picture. She kind of appears out of nowhere and physically attacks one of the girls. And then the male joins in that attack. And it is only that time, or at that time, when this younger girl produces the knife and hatchet and threatens to use them in self-defense. And that's when one of the other girls, the friend, calls the police. And it is also when the male begins to film these girls with his cell phone camera. And this is a good time to point out that the camera only shows what the person running it wants to be shown. So there are certainly times that we'll see a video and it still doesn't give the entire story. It doesn't tell you what happened up to the point of when the video started. And in this case, none of the actions of the immigrants are reflected on this video. If you just watch it, it looks like these girls are threatening the immigrants and brandishing weapons for no real reason. You can tell something there has agitated them. They've gotten angry about something. But you don't necessarily know what happened up to that point. It's almost as if the immigrant was trying to provoke some kind of response just so he could get it on film and use it as some kind of proof of, how hostile the locals were or something. So the one girl calls the cops and the cops arrive, and of course, because Scotland is part of the UK and thus afflicted with the same Orwellian trauma as England, the cops arrest the young girl. Yes, the victim of the harassment, in fear for her life, is arrested because she didn't allow herself or her sister or their friend to be properly culturally enriched. Now again, no one asked the question of the immigrants, why the sister of the man just popped up out of nowhere and attacked this girl? There should be some questions there as to what these two were doing and perhaps what their motivations might be. Was it that they were just out walking around and the male had a sexual emergency and he thought that these young underage girls were the best outlet for assistance? Were they just simply attacked for no reason? They were just walking around and for no reason, out of the blue, these young girls produced weapons and started harassing them. Were they perhaps attempting to lure these girls away so that they could grab one of them, or more of them, and kidnap them? We don't know. It's all kinds of questions that should be asked and answered here, but they just went right into arresting the 12-year-old girl. Now I'm sure there is some token investigation going on, but what we know for sure is that this young girl's been arrested. And now she's become kind of the meme of the month for August, which is great. And maybe, just maybe, she will be an inspiration to others to rise up and push back on the bullshit. And it brought to mind something for me. If you don't know the national anthem for Scotland, it's called Flower of Scotland. And it's about William Wallace, who's the subject of the great film, but historically inaccurate film, Braveheart. Well, let me read you the lyrics to that song, if you didn't know, because most of the time people hear the song played on the pipes, and they don't know what it is. It's, oh, well, that's a familiar song. I've heard it before on bagpipes, but they don't know what it is, and they don't know that it has words. So this is how it goes. O flower of Scotland, when will we see your likes again, that fought and died for your wee bit hill and glen? and stood against him, proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward in defeat again. And then the last verse is, those days are past now, and in the past they will remain, but we can still rise and be the nation again that stood against him. And then it goes off, back into the chorus. So it's a song of defiance, really, but it's also a song that recognizes that, Scotland is part of the UK, but it wonders when there will be another flower of Scotland that will come along and make a stand. Someone who will say, enough is enough. We can go about it on our own and make Scotland great again. Well, maybe we have that fire building here. Maybe Lola is a flower of Scotland. She's not the flower, but there's no doubt that she's a flower of Scotland. I think it's going to take many to perhaps lead to some major sea changes there. But she showed more balls and guts than almost every man or woman in Scotland or England when she pulled out those blades and said, come at me, boyo. Now I want to address something that I saw today that I can't say it's 100% accurate because I can't really confirm the source, but originally it was reported that this young girl's name was Maya, and that, according to this post that I saw circulating around on Gab, and I'll put it in the video, it's something that came from X. The person said that they had reached out to the girl's mother, and that information is incorrect. Her mother is quoted in this post and confirms that her name is Lola and her sister's name is Ruby. And the girl Maya is their friend, who was the third girl that was there and who's the one who called the police. We want to make sure that we get that out there and clear up the information so that, what we give out is correct or is as correctly as we can. Like I said, I can't 100% confirm this, but it's what is purported and it sounds legit, so that is what I'm going to go with. Lola is the young hero that likely saved her older sister and their friend from at least a beating by savage thugs who have no business being in Scotland to begin with. It's reported that the two immigrants are Bulgarian. Well, the last time I checked, there's no conflict going on in Bulgaria. So why would you be in the UK? What asylum are you seeking there in the UK? What grounds do you have for being in Scotland or England or Ireland? This man and his sister are apparently Muslim, which may go to some extent explaining what they're actually doing in the UK. But perhaps that's incorrect. Perhaps they're not Muslim. Maybe I saw it suggested that they might be gypsies as well, which is another ethnic group that has sought out immigration in the UK to take advantage of the handouts and gravy train that the government of the UK has bestowed upon the wretched, huddled masses of the world. That's the primary group that was causing problems in Ireland that led to the attacks that led to the demonstrations and things that took place or sort of began the uprising or the problems in Ireland. Well, Bulgaria is a European country that is not suffering from anything more than economic hardships. So get in line, because the rest of us are going through economic hardships too, okay? And handing out taxpayer money to every poor stray dog that wanders to our national front porch is a big contributor to why we're all suffering from economic hardships. So bugger off and go back to your own country to go through the economic hardship. Now, Bulgaria is also a hub of human trafficking, which is why I speculated that perhaps this couple were up to something more sinister than what you might think at first glance. Now, I don't have any evidence of that. It's just, pure speculation. But I think it warrants it warrants further questioning what these two were actually up to. And already as a result of this activity, this event, men in Scotland are now organizing to walk street patrols and protect people from unwanted advancements and attacks. And it's a small body of people right now, but that's how things start. That's how things begin. It starts small and it grows. And in Ireland, there are already larger groups, and it's much more widespread than just in the original couple of small towns that those things took place in. And England as well, due to an attack on a young man who was putting up English flags on the lamppost. He was someone came by and threw a Molotov cocktail at them. So large groups of young men are patrolling the streets as they go through and hang up these flags, rousting out the immigrants and sending them to seek shelter in their asylum hotels, if you will. Maybe this is the spark that lights the fire. And I keep talking about this and mentioning it as if to speak it into an existence, because I think if we keep conversing about it, that is what will happen. And that's what they fear, of course. That's why they keep trying to shut down the signal and censor the conversations. If we talk about it, it will take place. Their problem is, of course, that you can't stop the signal. It's already out there propagating around through avenues that they have no control over. So don't go silent on this. Keep talking about it, bringing it up in every corner and every outlet of the net. And let the UK know, let those people over there know that they're not alone, that we will send them the support that they need if they make it happen. Anyway, that is all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab. Nice crew and the Cold Fury blog. And I will see you on the next episode.